you ever wondered to what lengths you would be willing to go for your children or your unborn children? Of course, if you're a good person, you'd be willing to die for them. But think about this. Would you be willing to make embarrassingly horrible movies for them? Would you be willing to risk your future career as well as theirs for their own happiness? Would you be willing to make a film about a confused, genetically inbred, sulfur-powered mutant who wants to have sex with an annoying and mind-blowingly irritating girl while your child wanders around the desert in upsetting white shorts whining for their safe return, all the while belting out songs with inane lyrics that make you want to repeatedly grind your forehead against a cheese grater? These are the kind of questions you have to ask yourself after you watched Eegah. First and foremost person to mention is Eegah. Eegah was born over 100 years ago into a family of sulfur-powered giants. He gets his first taste of civilization when he wanders into a nearby highway and almost gets run over by Roxy's car. He can't get Roxy out of his head, and if you've never seen a girl before and a really short hot one wanders into your cave, what are you going to do? He sadly evaporates at the end of the film. Next comes Roxy. Roxy is a mutual love interest of Tom and Eegah. She's clearly the MacGuffin of the story and is only an object to be picked up, sung to, rescued, and died for. She's stubborn, and her I don't care attitude doesn't come off as brave and progressive as intended, but rather annoying and selfish. Up next is Tom, or Tommy, or as I like to call him, our child Jr. You don't know yet, but he's actually the reason the movie was made. His dad, the director, also stars as Roxy's dad, Mr. Miller. The entire movie is actually a vehicle for his singing abilities, which I'm not saying are bad, just misguided. Tommy as a character is only helpful in two things. He has a dune buggy at the right place at the right time, and he throws a rock at the right place at the right time. He's Roxy's boyfriend, or stalker, and he does well to remind the audience why he is a delightful character. Incidentally, it's his indirect fault that Eegah captures Roxy in the first place. Albeit Roxy's stupidity didn't help either. Lastly is Mr. Miller, aka the director, aka Dig Arch, aka Dad. Lo and behold, it came to pass in those days that our child Jr.'s father so loved his son, that he gave his only Eegah to the world. That's right, Mr. Miller is our child Sr. He wanted his son to succeed, but whether or not he was planning on riding his son's inevitable successful coattails to the top is another story. For now, though, he's Mr. Miller. He has such confidence in his daughter Roxy that he's willing to wander the desert for days on end to make her feel better about herself. Mr. Miller tries to give, quote, witty, unquote, jabs back and forth between his realized son Tommy, but it becomes so tiring that in the end you wish there was an additional death scene, if you know what I mean. One night, while buying a new swimsuit, Roxy almost runs over a caveman carrying a dead deer. So everybody goes to dinner the next night, where an old guy with really bad teeth makes fun of her. Roxy's father, Robert, as played by our child Sr., believes her though, so he decides to go to Shadow Mountain because that's apparently where she was driving. He opts a quick helicopter ride over to Shadow Mountain. Roxy and Tommy, as played by our child Jr., go to some manner of pool party where we are assaulted with a song, Vicky. Roxy gets a phone call from Helicopter Dan, and he says he can't go pick her father up later as they had planned. Roxy gets worried, so the two go out looking for him using their handy dune buggy. Meanwhile, our child Sr. sees the caveman, so he trips over his delicate little photography bag and passes out. Roxy and our child Jr. fall asleep for the night, but not before throwing another song at us, this one called Valerie. They eventually wake up from being knocked out by his singing and go off looking for Dad. While our child Jr. looks behind a small hill, Roxy faints from the side of the caveman. Our child Jr. will now spend a huge chunk of the film yelling out, "Roxy!" The caveman takes Roxy back to the cave where she snaps back into consciousness. Her and Dad muse over what the heck is going on. It turns out, by Dad's assumptions, that Eegah, the name he gave the caveman, has lived near Shadow Mountain by a highway for probably over 100 years. They've been a little family of mutants who live off of sulfur water, which gives them longevity, strength, and other buffers. He points out that Eegah has his dead relatives propped up against a wall because he can't handle the death of the peoples he's always known. Sounds a little bit like Psycho, doesn't it? Anyway, Eegah gets Roxy to have some sulfur water, eat some raw meat, take a nap, and meet the cardboard and baling wire parents. Roxy tries to comfort her dad's broken arm by giving him a shave, which apparently soothes him to some extent, and eventually Eegah is intrigued, so she gives him a shave too, after cutting the strings off the beard and having Eegah ingests some shaving cream, much to the disgust of any rational human. Eegah tries his best to get some. Dad continues to be useless. Eventually they go outside the cave, where Eegah strikes her unconscious. But lo and behold, he's spotted by Cabbage Patch Elvis. The two duke it out using fisticuffs, despite the fact that one of them has a shotgun. Archibald Jr. wins. I know, just play along. And the entire family races off in the dune buggy towards freedom, but they are all vehemently pursued by Eegah, who has a rock. Later that evening, Roxy can't stop thinking about Eegah. Even though he just tried to kill her father, tried to rape her, and then knocked her unconscious, she can't help but feel feelings for him. And there's only one day, so it doesn't count as Stockholm Syndrome either. Her father encourages her and tells her that they need to go to a party. There's some remark about a dead mother here, but they didn't exactly wow me with the character development, so I ignored it. Eegah, using Roxy's scent, goes in search of her. During Eegah's day out, he manages to scare a drunk guy with marital problems, almost gets run over by a Foley car, breaks into a house, stumbles into a room full of chimpanzees, or ladies' bathroom, ruin a pot roast, throw two guys in a pool, evade the police in an apartment building, and scare two old ladies. Somewhere during all that, we cut back to Archibald Jr., who begins belting. More like pelting, us with the song Nobody Lives on the Brownsville Road. After that, we get tag team tequila, while Archibald Jr. and some guys start fighting because one of them was dancing with Roxy. Maybe. It's kind of hard to tell. Luckily, Eegah shows up to take Roxy back to the cave, but the Sheriff's Desert Police Patrol show up and gun the boy down. Then Dad quotes scripture and we get the end.